Oh, Jorge, this is such a fantastic wig. You know, I love pink. Oh, hey! Hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 13, Episode 13. And before I get started, I just want to thank this week's Tipperdoos. Erica Adams, thanks, gorgeous. You know, I love you right back, seriously. And Emma Wakely from England sent some love to thank me for the fabulous reviews. You're fabulous, Emma, seriously. And I also want to thank the entire Fingerdoo family for the birthday love I've received this week, especially Michael Bergantino. God bless you, Michael. Also, Susan Nicolai, who sent this fabulous wig. Hello, Susan, and thank you very much. I'm so serious. Also, Jennifer Spain Green, Leon Playmaker, Richard Mark D, and Eric Cool. You're all spoiling me, and I love it. Thank you so much. Seriously. Now, Jorge, drink me. Ooh, what is this? Oh, a classic rye and ginger. It's been a while. Yummy. Why don't we drink these more often? I'm so serious. Okay, so we started this episode off by saying goodbye to Utica Queen. Simone was having feels about sending Utica home, but she wasn't about to let that stop her from reaching the top, I'm so glad to hear. Seriously. Kandy was congratulated for her win, much to her delight. It definitely lit a fire under her padded ass to fight for that crown, although, if you ask me, episode 13's a little late to feel that burn, I'm so serious. Gottmik was so surprised by the judges' reaction to her roast. As someone who would have said no to a roast show, she was now looking forward to doing a tour. Me too. I'd buy tickets to that show, seriously. Kandy pointed out that they were down to the top 5 and it was going to be a fight from here on to stay in the game, something Olivia was more than determined to do. And with a group cheers to making it this far, with a coast-to-coast cast, no less, the queens got out of drag. Finally. The next day in the workroom, the queens were enjoying only taking up one side of the table as Kandy gushed that they're all now her best friends. God bless Simone, because she suggested that Kandy wait until she saw the confessionals before making that statement. Some good advice right there, I'm just saying. But before any of the queens could debate it, Ru's video message interrupted them. This week's message was all about small parts and actors, or some such thing. Size seemed to be the theme at any rate. But Ru arrived and told them that their Maxi challenge would see them acting in the special effects extravaganza, Henny, I Shrunk the Drag Queens. And after explaining the parts to the queens, Ru frigged off to let them cast this sci-fi adventure on their own. Gasp. So the queens got down to it. They read the thick script, speaking of size, and then one by one told the room which character they wanted to play. Olivia typecast herself as the dumb sweet one, which already told me, you in danger, Olivia, because the judges have seen her do this character to death. Rosé wanted to be Brandy, the sarcastic wisecracker. Wisecracker was also my drag queen name in high school. Actually, it was Wisecrack, but I want to split hairs. Gottmik wanted Chardonnay, the whiny one, which, if you ask me, she's done to death in front of the judges as well. No offense. The only real issue was that Simone and Kandy both wanted to play the power-hungry and mean Dominique, so clearly there was going to be a battle for that part, with the loser getting Margarita, the smart and sexy natural-born leader. Personally, I would have gone for smart and sexy. Typecasting? Well, that's for the audience to decide. Neither Kandy nor Simone wanted to back down. I thought that Simone would be able to do a better job with Dominique, but then I wasn't casting this puppy. Eventually, it was just easier to let Kandy do it, is what I'm expecting was going through Simone's head. I'm sorry she backed down, I have to say. And the mood that enveloped her as she did made me worry about her performance. Seriously. The queens had a quick little read-through, and in my opinion, Kandy didn't impress anyone. If I had been in that workroom, I would have told Kandy what's what and taken Dominique away from her. And you could see that more than a couple of the queens agreed with me, seriously. The next big issue was wardrobe. Not only did they have to avoid blues and greens because they were shooting in front of a green screen, but Rosé made a good point. They were so close to the end of this race that their wardrobe pickings were thin. At least she had that tired short pink wig to wear. Unfortunately, seeing Rosé in that wig reminded Kandy of her uberlicious Joey J, although I didn't see it. It would take all of the hair on Joey J's body to equal one of Rosé's eyebrows, and I would be more than happy to collect it. Simone seemed to be letting the disappointment of not getting the role of Dominique affect her ability to pull a look together for Margarita. Of course, Simone was worried that this challenge would trip her up and send her home, and well, she didn't want to disappoint anyone, especially her drag house, the House of Avalon, whom her good Judy Gigi Good is also a member of. Seriously. Thank God Ru's video message called the queens back to the moment at hand, and as they worried about another twist to an already difficult challenge, they were surprised to see the gorgeous Scarlett Johansson waving back at them instead of Ru. Yeah, I'd be excited. She was there to give them some much-needed acting advice, much to the queen's delight. Scarlett had some fabulous advice about fighting imaginary foes on green screen and making a smaller part shine. And as an added surprise, Scarlett's husband, SNL writer and Weekend Update co-host Colin Jost, popped in to make a size queen joke. Seriously, he writes for SNL? No wonder I don't watch it. And with that visit boosting the queens to greater acting heights, they prettied up and arrived on set to film Henny, I Shrunk the Drag Queens, with co-directors Michelle Visage and Carson Kressley. Naturally, there were issues. Simone was finding acting and talking about things that weren't there difficult. Olivia had some issues about Simone's factory voice, which she interpreted as her having trouble connecting with the character. Personally, I wish that Olivia had just focused on her own performance. I'm so serious. As big a personality as Kandy has, her inability to deliver a line to Michelle and Carson's satisfaction was a definite issue. Something Simone felt wouldn't have been a problem with her in the role. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, Simone. My favorite part of the filming was the queens climbing up the side of a work table using an extension cord, a la Batman and Robin. Of course, they weren't climbing up anything, which made it hard for some of the queens to emulate, but I was impressed with the size of that cord. You heard me. Kandy took time out of her busy schedule to critique Olivia's performance by saying she wasn't showing anyone a different side of herself in the character of Ginger Ale. Ooh. I thought this was funny because the basis of Kandy wanting to play Dominique was that she felt the role sounded just like her. Way to mix it up, Kandy. Seriously. Speaking of Olivia, she kept interrupting filming with her unnecessary and constant questions. I wasn't even on set, but if I ever hear Olivia ask, "Question," one more time, I'm gonna slap her. Rosé not only impressed the directors with her acting, but the queens were seeing her shine in the role too. I hope the other queens didn't let their gagging on Rosé's eleganza keep them from learning a thing or two. Seriously, observe, ladies. And then it was Gottmik's scene with an even bigger pussy. Cat. Cat! I said it. Her character had to fight a giant cat paw and her allergies all at the same time. As Kandy played the part of the paw, Gottmik did her whining and cooing thing with a whole bunch of sneezing added in for good measure. This was funny to begin with, but Gottmik's ability to change it up as per her direction made it even more so. Well done, Gottmik. Seriously. And then it was Elimination Day. For the most part, the queens were excited to get ready for the runway and see who would make it to top 4. Of course, Kandy wanted a second win. It's good to want things. But Rosé felt that no one part carried enough weight to eclipse any other, so she felt it was every queen for herself. Simone was feeling the pressure of not letting her friends and family down by landing in the bottom again, or, gasp, dare I say it, getting eliminated. Bless her. She was really feeling the pressure, and I feel it's awareness like that that separates the queens from the princesses. And to me, Simone is a true queen. Just saying. Rosé made a good point about how, at the beginning of the season, she was guarded because she didn't want the audience at home judging her for being herself. And that's why none of her personality shone through. I get it. Sometimes the things we hate about ourselves are exactly why people like us in the first place. It's those differences that set us apart, and if you take them away, well, you're anybody. Then the talk turned to representation and the first time anyone saw someone like them on TV or in media. Gottmik certainly didn't. She felt that any of the trans males that did make it to TV were hypermasculine and overcompensating as opposed to her little feminine self. Her frustration at the trans community holding up the Barbie and Ken roles as the only option was an eye-opener for me. I had no idea. I thought that was just straight people. And then it was time for the runway. Ru looked good in her Grecian goddess gown. Michelle Visage was looking pretty in her pastel jacket. Carson was looking downright masculine in his somber suit. And the utterly divine Cynthia Erivo, star and Oscar nominee of the recent film Harriet, just sparkled. Category is Ode to Pockets. It took me a second to actually understand what Simone was wearing, but when I realized it was the fly front and pocket to a pair of jeans, I gagged. It was so unique and looked gorgeous that I couldn't help but give it a Fingerdoo, seriously. I loved Olivia Lux's look, but it wasn't pockets to me. Could she put stuff in those pannier bags and walk around? Absolutely, but this was an ode to pockets, not an ode to careful camouflaging. Seriously. But I still gave it a Fingerdoo because it was so cute. Shut up. Rosé's fabulous mod capelet was everything. And then she took it off to reveal the matching mini swing dress underneath it. I gagged. It was better than a Fingerdoo. It was a finger fist. I'm not doing that motion. It's disgusting. I don't know what Kandy Muse was thinking, but I was thinking she'd gone and had a stroke, because why else would anyone wear this for any reason, anywhere? Seriously. This was all kinds of finger don'ts for me, and nothing she said to explain it could change my mind. Seriously. What was she thinking? The concept of Gottmik's runway was fun, but the star of that look was the dress made out of hot jewelry, which, if you asked me, overpowered her pocket ode. Don't get me wrong, it was a total Fingerdoo, but still. And then it was time to watch Henny, I Shrunk the Drag Queens. The stars of this show were definitely Rosé, Gottmik, and that cat. Not that Simone sucked. That job fell to Olivia and Kandy. Simone's biggest crime for me was she just wasn't big enough with her character, but she was far from being the worst. That honor fell to Olivia for being her usual one-note self wrapped around an apologetic baby voice. Oh, and Kandy for her Dominique, coming off as more irritated than evil, seriously. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Up first, Simone. Off the top, Michelle admitted that she thought Simone was holding back during the filming, but was amazed at how well it translated to the screen. Ru told Cynthia Erivo about Simone playing Harriet Tubman for Snatch Game, and Cynthia was obviously tickled pink. Not that she wasn't already. Cynthia loved Simone's performance as Marguerite almost as much as she loved her runway look. All in all, it was a good night for Simone. Olivia was next, and although Carson liked her outfit, he didn't see it being about pockets. Michelle was bored by Olivia playing the same character again, while Cynthia suggested that she try to take her character to the next level. Or home, I was thinking. Rosé was an obvious fave of the judges. Carson said she was a joy to direct. Michelle loved her runway, as did Cynthia, who said it reminded her of one of her favorite musicals, Sweet Charity. And if you don't know what Sweet Charity is, it was a musical starring Gwen Verdon and directed by her husband, Bob Fosse, and was made into a movie directed by Bob Fosse, starring Shirley MacLaine and featuring Cheetah Rivera and Paula Kelly. And if none of those names makes any sense to you, I'll be covering it in an upcoming episode of Makeup and Movies, I'm just saying. Kandy was next, and Michelle said it all for me. Kandy could have made it bigger and should have tried to make it not Kandy. She wished that Kandy and Olivia had switched parts, and I have to say, I agree. And Kandy, thankfully, couldn't disagree with them. As the tears welled up, you could tell Kandy was disappointed in herself. God bless Michelle for saying at least she wasn't Brock ally. That's the line. Her drag sister looking like a fool. Last but not least was Gottmik, and everyone loved her runway. Carson couldn't say enough about it, as long as what he said was a pun about watches and time. But the biggest compliments were about her performance, which everyone agreed was hilarious and inspired. Looks like Gottmik had a good night too. Here you go, buddy. Seriously. And then, inspired by the opening of Henny, I Shrunk the Drag Queens, Ru asked the question, who should go home tonight? Dum dum dum. Well, as gagged as the queens were, they all chose Olivia. Well, except for Olivia, who said Kandy, but it took her forever to do so. Possibly to save her nice person reputation. Personally, if I were her, I would have yelled Kandy's name before Ru was finished the question. Who should go? Kandy Muse! Just like that. Just saying. And then the queens headed back to the Untucked lounge. Well, everyone but Simone, who had stepped out of her shoes for the critique and needed a minute to get them back on. Back in the Untucked lounge, the queens were dealing with the harshness of it all. Olivia was dealing with being dismissed by the rest of the queens instead of actually hearing it this time because, let's be honest, it's not the first time anyone has told her this. Rosé pointed out that Olivia's desire to explore her drag during this process was telling because the other queens had already done a lot of that exploration in their drag careers. Let's not forget, Olivia's only been doing drag for about a year and she still made top 5. Well done, Olivia, is all I'm saying. Seriously. Kandy was disappointed in herself for dropping the ball this close to the end, but even though she knew she would be lip-syncing for her life, she wasn't going to hold back. All I have to say is, where was that attitude during the acting challenge? Seriously. I'm glad that Simone said something to Kandy about wanting to play Dominique, and I'm glad that Kandy admitted she wished she could have given it to her. But before they could get into it, Olivia's mom and grandmother showed up in a hilarious video message that, well, took them 3 tries to get right. But I see where Olivia gets her cuteness. Seriously. What was a surprise was that before Olivia arrived at Drag Race, she had a fight with her grandmother because her grandmother said she couldn't be a part of Olivia's choice to be a drag queen. That's hard, especially when she had such a close relationship with Olivia before that. This is when religion disappoints me. I'm sure the baby Jesus never wanted parents to turn their backs on their children or to make them feel less than. And it's those select religious few that have that attitude who ruin religion for me. Not that they're all like that, but seriously, the ones who aren't need to stand up against the ones that are. Amen. I thought there'd be lightning. And then the drama hit the fan. Kandy was feeling lightheaded and needed air, so she called for a medic as she went outside. Apparently her blood pressure was a little high, and it seemed to me that she was having a bit of a panic attack. Simone popping out to check on her seemed to calm her down a bit, but what really helped was her taking some deep cleansing breaths. Eventually, she returned to the workroom, a little worse for wear, but I'm glad she did because the heavenly Cynthia Erivo popped in to say hi to the girls. This was a special visit for sure. It was the first time I felt the disappointment in the queens for not being able to hug a visitor. I understand that. Cynthia asked how they were doing. Olivia shocked me by saying that she'd finally learned to stop asking for validation. Did she just learn that a couple of hours ago? Because yesterday she was doing just that, wasn't she? Simone asked what advice Cynthia had for someone who's about to be thrust into all this fame nonsense. And as Cynthia said, for them to keep good people around them and to not be afraid to say no. Kandy got up and left the room again. No one said anything or asked her why. She just left. Sadly, Cynthia was called back to set very shortly after that, and while she made her way through the backstage area, there was Kandy back on the heart monitor getting her blood pressure tested again. Cynthia asked Kandy how she was and gave her some words of encouragement, but Kandy's big concern beyond her health was whether or not she'd be well enough to lip sync. And then it was time for the queens to return to the main stage, where Ru checked in with Kandy, who assured Ru she was fine now. Rosé was announced as this week's winner, much to her delight, and sadly, but not surprisingly, Olivia and Kandy were in the bottom, bless. This was a great lip sync. Kandy surprised me by being funny. Or maybe it was just her outfit. Olivia did a great job too, although she didn't seem to have the fire that Kandy did. I enjoyed both of their performances, but when the music died, I wasn't surprised that Ru told a very relieved Kandy to Shantae, which made Olivia the 9th queen to sashay away. I'll miss Olivia for sure, but I agree with Ru. She was done. So, how about you? Do you agree with Olivia going home, or should it have been Kandy? And Who do you think will be cut before the finale? My money's on Kandy, no offense. Simone, Gottmik, and Rosé have multiple wins and have definitely been tearing up that runway. Kandy would have to shoot gold out of her butt or something to keep any of them from being top 3, if you ask me. Seriously. What do you think? All we can do is wait until next week's episode to see how it all goes down, and then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to please like this video if you did, and also please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. It would help me out tons, seriously. And until next time, miss me! Mwah! Seriously, Jorge. So much drama this week. I like them climbing up the thing like Batman and Robin. Do you remember that? Oh my God. And you know what was funny is now as an adult when I watched that, all the people that stuck their heads out of the windows were all famous. But as a kid, I didn't know who these people were. I just thought that they were, you know, people that lived in the building they were climbing up the side of. That's Cynthia Erivo. Oh, God, she's stunning. Did you see Harriet? It's really good. I've watched it twice, actually. I enjoyed it so much. Don't I look glamorous in this hair? I'm serious. I'm so glad that I'm wearing longer hair lately. Somebody told me once I looked like a pylon. It just kept going out from my head over my shoulders. I just don't think I was styling it right. Bastard.